Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Meta Cafe. I'm your host, Janet Hickox. And good morning, Michelle. I see you out there. I hope everybody is having a wonderful day. I got to tell you, it is starting to feel like spring, even though it's really cold. But the sun is shining, the days are getting longer, and it just makes me feel excited that spring is coming. Even if it isn't here yet, that's okay. It's on its way. And I have lots to talk to you about today. Of course, we're on the run up to the new moon solar eclipse. Good morning, Suzanne. And thank you for joining me this morning. So there's a lot going on in the heavens above us. And so we have quite a bit to talk to, or speak to, let's say. So first off this morning, a friend of mine, and I keep meaning to tell you guys this because she and I were having this conversation like before I got sick. And we were talking about how the planets right now appear to be like a bucket, right? There's the North Node, that's the handle of the bucket, and all the other planets are down here at the bottom. Spring is already there in Northern California, Michelle says. Well, the robins believe it's spring here, but there's ice on the ground this morning, or frost. I don't know if it's ice or frost, but it's below freezing, so it's cold. Poor birds are maybe a little bit early. So anyway, we were talking about the fact that the configuration that the planets were in resembled that of a bucket. And my friend Michelle, hello, Michelle Guay, I see you out there. And she is the one that asked me if we could consider the same thing as a fan. And I thought about that for a minute because, I'm thinking electric fan, no, not going to happen. But if you think of a fan like that, which we would, a hand fan, then definitely these planets, and I'm going to show you a picture of what I mean. Here, if we turn this on our side, here's the upper part. Let's see, I'm backwards here. So here's the fan part, the top part that would be cooling us down. And down here is the North Node, the handle of the fan. And it's almost a perfect analogy. I thought the bucket was a perfect analogy, right? With the North Node sort of holding up the weight, if you will, of all of the other planets. But you could also look at it as the North Node anchoring the fan and all of the energy of those other planets being waved past us and almost, like with the wind, just changing and causing stress and different challenges and so forth to pop up in our outer world. And the reason I bring this up this morning, everything always happens in perfect timing, is that the moon has slipped into Aquarius this morning. And that means we are in the last run-up to the solar eclipse, which happens on the 15th, 1 p.m. my time. So that would make it, say, 4:06 p.m. East Coast time. And that will be at 27 degrees of Aquarius. So we have some things that we can be doing for ourselves and some experiences to have over the rest of today and tomorrow, and then we can be ready for this new moon. And the lead up to this is that almost, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 planets are in a squared relationship today. A square, remember, is a challenge. It's the planets coming to a 90-degree angle, which brings up a crisis, or brings up either a crisis in action or a crisis in consciousness for us as we try to move through the energies of what is being presented in our outer world. So we have the sun squaring Jupiter. Now, Jupiter usually makes everything benefic. Even if it's a square, you can bet that even though there may be a challenge presented, with Jupiter involved, we have the tools, the skill, the grace, perhaps, to watch it just happen and unfold, and the solution comes with it. The sun squaring Jupiter is all about our optimism, seeing the path ahead of us. Who are we supposed to be, claiming our truth and our authentic path forward. So that part seems pretty easy. Mercury squaring Jupiter is also fairly easy, but sometimes, remember, Mercury is a planet of communication. And oftentimes we can find ourselves Remember, Jupiter is the planet that rules Sagittarius, and Sagittarius is a tendency to be blunt in speaking the truth. So when we have Mercury squaring Jupiter, sometimes there may be the tendency for us to speak first, think later. So today, watch your mouth. It may be your truth to say exactly what needs to be said, but it may need to come out of your mouth in a way that's a little lighter or maybe a little more easy for the other person. But, I also want you guys to think about how it is you speak to yourself. When we have squares, we're often, if there's this frustration feeling that you can't quite speak to, you may be bashing your own self instead of calling yourself out for everything that you're learning and for being who you really are, for loving yourself, and etc. Venus is also squaring Mars today, and Suzanne says she's already having that problem today. Yeah, I can believe that. I didn't get my hair right, so I was, yelling at myself in the mirror, and then I went, okay, there's got to be something weird going on today, that I'm already trying to beat myself up. So let's stop that action in its tracks, and let's start talking to ourselves a little bit nicer, and then making sure that when we do have to say what we need to say to other people, that we can say it in a way that doesn't hurt their feelings. In other words, it's time for us to be responsible for our own stuff, our own shit. Eclipse, yeah, eclipse, good thing, right? The eclipse brings up lots of energy. Oh, I was going to share with you this. And before I go into the rest of the squares that are happening today, because, oh my gosh, yesterday, a friend of mine had, well, she didn't offer this yesterday, but we did it yesterday. She'd offered me an Akashic Records reading. Now, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the Akashic Records or if you know what that is, but to me, it's like the information that's encoded in the galactic center as it relates to us as humans, and all of the experiences we've had forward and backward, or will have in the forward, have had in the back, and our lineages, our past lives, our experiences of what's happening with us in this life, etc., etc. And she had offered to do this for me, and I never really had an Akashic Records reading before. And you do? Roseanne reads the Akashic Records, so you know what I'm talking about then. Well, she proceeded to blow me away. It's not often that I am blown away, but I was blown away by the absolute truth that I felt. You know how sometimes when you hear the truth and it just resonates through your whole body, that every fiber of your being is screaming, yes, yes, that's exactly what happened, or that's exactly right. And that's exactly how I experienced this reading yesterday. And it really was, this woman does not, she knows who I am, but she doesn't know me. She doesn't know my experiences that I've had over the last year or so in my life. And it was almost like she was just reading the book of my life and helping me see where things were stuck or where things were causing me problems. And she gave me a new piece of information that I'd never heard before, and it is undeserved karma. And she would have no way of knowing that sometimes I'm railing at the universe, asking God what the heck I did so wrong in another lifetime that I would be feeling so punished in this lifetime. She had no way of knowing, and I don't think I've ever even shared that with you guys on air. I'm not even sure I've ever shared that with my family. But that's usually where I'm going. I'm going with, what did I do that was so bad that I'm, blocked at every turn, and that these kinds of things happen to me. And, it sounds kind of victim-y, I know, but it's the honest truth as to how I experience sometimes the things that are going on in my life. And she did not know that, but she brought up this idea of undeserved karma, something that had happened in another lifetime that was so profound that was not even my fault, but I took on the responsibility of it. And that weight of it has been like a chain around me for many lifetimes. And I felt such profound truth in what she was telling me. And I now just, I can't wait to finish up the reading. I mean, there's another couple of sessions I need to have with her. One, to figure out now, what do I do with that? I mean, it's one thing to recognize it and see it in action and understand it's there. And now there's this next piece that I have to work with. So I hope that that sounds familiar to some of you, that maybe in some cases where we're feeling like, nothing is going right for us, and that you can't really put a finger on what it is that you might have done or how you might have hurt someone else, that maybe you're taking on undeserved karma. I wonder if a lot of us that are light workers or do this kind of work out in the world have done that in the past, and almost, carry the weight of that. And it's time for us to release that. And the problem with the astrology right now is that these squares tend to almost crystallize and bring into focus those things that aren't working right for you. And Roseanne having that heavy burden too. I'm so glad I'm not alone in this. Sometimes when I speak these things, I wonder, is everybody out there going, she's a loon, she's a loon? So it's really good to hear that other people have had these experiences as well. And so let's get back to the squares, because these squares bring us to almost expose us to the pieces of us that aren't quite right? The parts of us where we're not right in action, or where our consciousness is not quite right. We experience the squares as challenges. We experience them as the outer world putting up some form of block or limit on us, kind of feeling like we're being funneled in a different direction, even though that may not be the direction we want to go. And we tend to, as a result, we tend to kind of block our forward action with this, instead of just being open and allowing things to unfold for us. Or by the next turn, we also will sometimes keep pushing and pushing and pushing and doing. Good morning, Katie. I'm glad you're having a good experience with this information as well. But the squares also push us to keep trying, to keep pushing forward, to keep marching ahead, even if everything seems to be falling apart. And so squares are a good thing. So that's essentially what I'm trying to say. Okay, we have a lot of squares. We have a lot of squares in the run up to this partial solar eclipse, but we also have a lot of reasons, a lot of things hidden within us that we have to come to terms with, and these squares help us do that. Now, some of the more obscure squares that are happening today and into tomorrow is the moon is squaring Uranus. Now, the moon, having just moved into Aquarius, is really taking us into and solidifying for us the energy of that new age, right? Of brotherhood, of higher order getting along, of love, and how we would want to, the utopian kind of world that we would like to create, one of peace and love and understanding. But we still have Uranus, the little bit of a rebel guy that is, stirring the pot. And in our outer world, when we look out there, we don't really see peace, love, and understanding. We see a lot of chaos and a lot of people running their mouths and saying things they shouldn't say. And you know who I'm talking about. And what do we do with that, right? What do we do with that? Well, understanding that we are in a square situation, meaning that this is what we are being challenged with. And the biggest thing that you can do is to call it all into yourself and take responsibility for your reaction to what's going on in that outer world, to why it is that you have a charge on what that person says or does. Why does it hurt you so? How can you create a healing around that? That's the only responsibility you really have, because you can't make him shut up, right? You can't make Congress do what you want them to do. You can't make your next door neighbor do what you want him to do. So in lieu of being able to control your outer world, bring it on in and look and see what it is that you can do to bring peace and joy and love and understanding, and really begin to see that in your outer world as a reflection of what's gone on within you. I hope that makes sense. We also have Uranus squaring Pluto. That's been ongoing, so it's nothing new, and that's the titanic struggle that we see in our outer world. We also have Chiron squaring the galactic center. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I had the weirdest dreams last night. I was being pursued by a dinosaur. Roseanne, you were in my dreams last night. I'm sure all of you were in my dreams because there were so many people in this dream that I didn't always recognize faces, but I knew we were soul contracted together in some way, and we're being pursued by what looked like a flying T-Rex. Yeah, okay, I was not taking drugs last night. So to me, that is a sort of feeling that we're feeling pursued by monsters, by the old energies, by the scary things that are still hidden in our subconscious minds, and being able to come face to face with those things and to release the energy around the fear of those things helps us to move on. So Chiron, remember, is the planet of our wounding. And the wound for us right now is in the sign of Pisces. For those born in 1960-ish to about late 1968, your Chiron is in Pisces. And you're being probably tasked with the most clearing in preparation for Chiron's move out of Pisces and into Aries. So those of you born 1969 and into the 70s, your turn's coming. But for right now, there are a big chunk of us who are having to work through a lot of this old, wounded energy. When Chiron is squaring the galactic center, what's incoming is a bunch of new, wonderful energy. It is also the energy slipping into our consciousness from the Akashic records. So how apropos is it that I had an Akashic record reading yesterday? Because this is the energy, the information coming in for quite a number of us at this moment in time. How is it that we can clear what's holding us back so that we can move forward? And, using the fan, right? How can we best hold on to our North Node? Our North Node meaning our destiny, our life path trajectory. The reason why you incarnated now is held in your North Node. And the transiting North Node is the one I'm speaking about right now. So it may not be specific to you, but the energy it's bringing up is in Leo. And Leo and Aquarius are where these partial and solar and lunar full eclipses are happening, because we're being asked to follow our hearts. We're being asked to follow a pathway that leads us to that age of Aquarius. And anything that we need to let go of right now to aid in our soul's evolution and growth is what we have to experience, whether we're experiencing it in the dream state, if we're experiencing it in our everyday world. And the experience does not have to be a negative one, a bad one. That it's not here to punish you. I was doing enough punishing of myself on my own for things that I had no earthly clue was happening until I had this Akashic Records reading, which was really, really interesting. Roseanne says her North Node is in Aquarius. So Roseanne, this eclipse is all about you having to take some responsibility for who you are and blending your energies in with a group, people that you're here to work with. And yeah, Suzanne says she's going to have to look at her chart again. If any of you need to have somebody look at your chart, let me know and I'll quickly look that up for you. So the good news in all of this today, the one transit I think that really helps us move through, because the squares bring it up, the trines help us move through it. We have one major trine out of all the squares today. We have this one wonderful trine moving between the planet Mars and your destiny, right? Your destiny, or the North Node, and what it's showing us in Leo, across the Leo-Aquarius axis. And that is about taking guided right action toward your destiny, toward your path forward, toward your truth, which holds all of your dreams, your ambitions, and your goals. So we have help, right? And yes, we may be experiencing all these different challenges from different people, from situations, from the past, et cetera, but we have the tools on our tool belt to help us move forward. And that is a really happy-go-lucky kind of thing. Here's Katie saying South Node in Aquarius. See, you're all drawn here for a reason to hear this information, right? Your destinies are in some way here, or in some way those squares are going to trigger your own natal destinies, which is always fascinating to see. Now, of course, I pulled a card for us this morning, and it made absolutely perfect sense. And it's a card we haven't had yet, luckily, so it's not like I'm getting those messages that we got before. Today I pulled the card Observer. Let's see if I can get you to be able to see this beautiful card. You know what you're missing here is the color of this card. It's kind of a sandy color, and what you see is this beautiful little fox with a lens or a telescope or something, and he's looking up at the stars, right? He's observing the sky, or he's observing celestial events. Hard to say exactly what he's looking at, but there he is. He's acting as the observer, all right? So let's look at the card and its meaning. Actually, he's looking at the moon. I thought it was the sun, but that's the moon he's looking at. Interesting, considering we're in the throes of a upcoming eclipse. But the essential meaning of this card is to get perspective and objectivity, a neutral observation from a distance. And the message is, most people see the world through a personal lens. We all do it. They closely identify with their feelings and experiences, so much so that they come to believe that these are the only reality. There are times when you need distance in order to gain perspective and understand your circumstances from a more neutral vantage point. Now is one of those times in your life. This is a perfect moment for you to begin to do some exploring. Instead of only considering yourself, consider what you need to understand about the conditions, people, culture, and environment you're engaged with now. You'll be so happy you did. Illumination is the miracle you seek and will indeed find. Love this card. And, we often talk about becoming the observer, standing back and wading through what is happening and seeing what its meaning is for you, but from a neutral standpoint, instead of getting emotionally. Remember, we talk about it sometimes as reaction. So instead of reacting to what's happening around you, or to an event, or to people being jerks, or whatever it is that's going on, step back and just observe first and breathe first before you take any kind of action or speak any kind of words that are going to hurt. Suzanne says, how do I find my South Node? So if you go to, let's see, my favorite site is astro.com. And on Astro, you can put in your own birth information and you can pull your chart. And the South Node looks like the upside down horseshoe. Actually, I'm not sure if it's the upside down one or the right one, but it's the one, it looks like a cup, right? Right. It's a U shape. And you might have to have a setting in there that allows the North Node to be shown. Suzanne, if you guys will bear with me for a minute, have I done a chart for you before? If so, let me see if it will let me pull up your chart with an F Fulmer. F-U-L-L, no, darn it, I haven't done a chart for you before. That's craziness. Well, if you do know how to get a chart, Jaybird says, hi, Janet. Who's Jaybird? Is that Jocelyn? Is Jaybird Jocelyn? If so, hi, Jaybird. Hi, Jocelyn. Whoever Jaybird is, hello. And it's good to see you this morning. So yeah, the South Node is the cup. It holds the sum total of all of your lifetimes, your gifts and your talents, your experiences, your karma. And if you think about the cup, it's meant to be upended and kind of spilled out into this lifetime and shared in a way that moves it toward the North Node. Right, the North Node is your actual destiny. In other lifetimes, the South Node worked for you in Aquarian ways, right? If your South Node is in Aquarius, Suzanne. In this lifetime, however, that must mean your North Node is in Leo. So instead of being a part of the group, in this lifetime, you have to spill that energy out in a way that individualizes you. in a way that calls attention to you, that makes you the center of attention. And it means that in this lifetime, rather than doing what feels good to everybody that's around you, you have to follow a path that is what you desire. I have a Leo North Node myself. I used to think, wow, that's really exciting to be able to tell people, just follow your heart's desire. But it is singly the most difficult thing to do in life, right? Because there are always all these things going on, at least in my head, and they may be going on in your heads too, about what you should or shouldn't do, right? I should be writing. I should be talking. I should be doing more readings. I should be outside pulling the weeds, blah, 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 right? So Virgo? No, not if you have a South Node in Aquarius. Then your North Node would have to be in Leo. Could be very close to Virgo. Mine's at the 29th degree of Leo. So that very much looks like, being in Virgo, but it's not. And that also means that these eclipses have been very difficult for you, probably, Suzanne, and anybody else who has, a Leo, Aquarius, South Node, North Node. These eclipses are playing right along your destiny. And my Leo friends and my Aquarius friends, you're all under the gun, right? You're all under the gun. I happen to have a lot of planets in Leo, and I've been under the gun. And it's been an interesting year so far this year. But even looking at last year, very interesting how some of this energy is playing out in our personal lives. And even if you don't have something powerful going on, or you don't think that you have something powerful going on across Aquarius and Leo, you are a citizen of this United States. You are a citizen of this planet. So there is very important stuff happening because you also have Aquarius and Leo somewhere in your chart. It may just not be affecting you in as powerful a way, or maybe it's more hidden from you how it's working in your favor or what's happening. But trust me when I say it's affecting you, it's affecting all of us. And yeah, these eclipses are killing you. Yes, that's kind of the feeling, right? And in a real way, there is a little death happening here. It's a death of the old you, so in favor of the new and improved you, the one that's really here with the message or with the actions that they're meant to take, the sharing of your gifts or whatever. Anything that's been stopping you from being able to share that has to go. And the eclipses help that happen. It doesn't always feel good in the way that they happen. That's because we're always holding on so tightly to the way things are. If we would just relax and just go with the flow, it might work out in our favor with a whole lot less irritation, a whole lot less fuss. I have a great example of this. Like this time in October of last year, I found out that I was going to have to move from a home I loved, from a place on this island that I absolutely loved, and that I was going to have to move in. We were supposed to be done by July 1st, I think it was. And all those months from October to June, when we actually moved in here, I fretted and worried and resisted this whole idea of having to move, of finding the right place. I mean, I literally drove myself crazy for about 8 months out of last year. And when it came right down to it, finding the house, moving, everything happened with such ease and such grace that I looked back across those months and went, what on earth was I so worried about? Right? It was a huge lesson. It was a huge lesson because literally all of last Christmas, all of the holiday season, all of the beginning of the new year, I was in total turmoil around this move that I was going to have to make. And if I had just released all of that right in the beginning and just let it flow, it would have been so much nicer. I could have done it with so much less wear and tear on my psyche, on my soul, on my body. And so it's a big lesson now whenever we are facing something big that we know is coming. Our tendency is to worry and to get into, that mindset. Let it go. Just let it, release it, become the observer, step back, and just watch it unfold. Then magic can happen. And indeed, literally magic did happen. So if you are experiencing issues with this upcoming eclipse, sit back and relax and enjoy the ride, because I swear the universe is working on your behalf. It is helping you in some way. It is being your friend. It may not always look like it, but you have to have faith and trust that you will be in the right place at the right time with the right people, with the right gifts and toys to do what it is you're here to do. All right, I think I've carried on long enough this morning. Thank you all for listening. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Take care. Much love to you all. Bye for now.